Will Scream 7 be the darkest movie yet? Let's talk about it.
Certain rules. Push the laws and you end up dead.
This is the moment when the supposedly dead killer comes back to life.
Not in my movie.
Surprise, Sidney.
He's gone mad.
We all go a little mad sometimes.
A very simple formula.
You want to play psycho killer?
Everybody's a suspect.
No, please don't kill me, Mr. Ghostface. I want to be in the sequel.
I'll be right back.
Okay, I think it's gonna go something like this.
What's up, everyone? I'm Pamela. Welcome back to the channel. Today's video was inspired by one of my viewers, Alex, so shout out Alex, thank you for the video inspo. Let's talk about Scream 7. There has been some talk amongst fans, rumors that Scream 7 might actually be one of the darkest movies in the franchise. And I do hope that this is true. I feel like we kind of have to get back to basics a little bit. I feel like Screams 1 through 4 definitely were a little bit more on the scary side, definitely a lot more mystery in the plot. I love Scream 5 and Scream 6, but I do feel like they're kind of lacking in some departments, like with the mystery and sort of like the fear that we feel as the audience. I feel like in the first 4 movies, the stakes were definitely higher. I mean, in Scream 5, they did kill off Dewey, so I will give them that. But as far as Scream 6, there really were no stakes in that movie. No one died. And I don't really want to be sitting in Scream 7, not really fearing for anyone's life. So what are some ways that they can make Scream 7 a scarier movie? The first thing I think would be an actually intimidating Ghostface. I feel like that is not something that we've gotten in a long time. In the original, Billy and Stu were definitely intimidating. They definitely seemed truly psychotic. Their performance is pretty scary even when you watch it back. Even in like Scream 4, Jill is actually pretty scary. Even though it's not like she's this, large man that's like towering over you that can like do some serious damage to you, she is still just truly psychotic. She could do something crazy at any moment. She is pretty intimidating. But when it comes to Screams 5 and 6, I definitely didn't feel that with those ghost faces, especially Scream 6. I feel like the Scream 6 ghost faces are a little bit more on the goofy side. And when I rewatch Scream 6, I just don't feel any sort of intimidation from these ghost faces. Same with Scream 5. I think Amber and Richie are pretty mild. I feel like in Scream 5, Vince would have made a good ghost face. I think he could have been actually scary and intimidating. And in Scream 6, I think Danny would have made a good intimidating ghost face. So I do think, or at least I hope, Scream 7 kind of returns to this and gives us a truly scary killer. Now, you guys know I, of course, have to bring up Stu Macher. I do think Stu's alive, and I think he's going to come back in 7, leading a cult of ghost faces. And hopefully, when he comes back, hopefully he's even scarier than he was the first time. Because in the first movie, he is a little bit more on the goofy side, which I love about him. But at the same time, he is still pretty psychotic.
I prefer the term psychotic.
And still pretty scary, like you don't know what he's gonna do next. But if and when he returns in Scream 7, I hope he is even darker and scarier. Same goes for the cult members. I hope they're not just these little, goofy college kids like with Scream 6 that just don't actually scare me. I hope that they're truly crazy. Another way for Scream 7 to kind of increase the scare factor would be gorier kills. Maybe take a page out of the Terrifier playbook, give us some truly gory kills, which is not really something that we've gotten that often. Olivia Morris in Scream 4, that was pretty bloody and brutal. But honestly, other than that, I feel like Greg in Scream 6 in the fridge, when he's all hacked up into little pieces, that was pretty gory. I think we need some more of that in Scream 7. I mean, maybe they can take another page out of the Terrifier playbook and kill some kids in the story. I know people are kind of divided on how they feel about this. A lot of people didn't like that in the Terrifier franchise they kill kids. But I mean, it is a movie. It's a horror movie. Horror movies have been killing kids for decades, so this is nothing new. So if Scream 7 did that, it definitely would make it darker and scarier. I mean, some people think that maybe Ghostface will kill one of Sidney's kids, which, I don't know how I feel about that because I feel like Sidney's been through so much. So to put her through that would be super sad. But, it's a movie. It definitely would add to the emotion and the scare factor in this movie. I think she has 3 kids. We don't really know for certain. She definitely has at least 2. But, when we found out the original script for Scream 6, she was going to have 3. So, I don't know. Maybe one of them, the writers will consider one of them expendable and Ghostface might kill one of them. A lot of people also want to see one of Sidney's daughters become a Ghostface. I personally am not a fan of this. I don't think one of her daughters should be Ghostface, but if it were to happen, that definitely would be pretty dark as far as the storyline goes. So I don't know, will they have the guts to do that? But a better way, I think, to kind of make it dark but not that dark is to have Stu kind of try to recruit one of her daughters for his cult and maybe have the daughter struggle a little bit with the decision. Maybe Stu can manipulate her and get in her head to the point where she almost considers going against her family and Sidney. Another way to make Scream 7 a little scarier, we need to remove plot armor. There was so much plot armor in Scream 6 to the point where it's almost comical. I mean, Mindy should have died on the train. Chad should have died with the 2 ghost faces attacking him. Gale should have died in her chase scene. Literally no big characters died. We gotta increase the stakes and remove the plot armor. When we're watching Scream 7, we have to actually fear for the lives of these characters. Maybe Mark Kincaid will get killed off. Sidney's husband, the father of her children, we haven't seen him since Scream 3. I feel like if he comes back, they might have to kill him just to give us some higher stakes. Just Ghostface going after Sidney's family, her kids and her husband, and Sidney and Mark trying to save their kids, that will just definitely increase the scare factor in Scream 7. I do also think Gale is gonna die. This is something that I've talked about on my channel before a bunch of times. I think it's Gale's time to go. She almost died in 6. I think it's going to happen in Scream 7. And something else that I have said before is I think she's going to sacrifice herself for Sidney so that Sidney can go on living for her family. Because, Gale doesn't have a family. But I just had another thought. It would actually be pretty dark if Ghostface made Sidney choose between Gale and Mark, or even Gale and her daughter. Ghostface has the both of them tied up and tries to make Sidney choose between Gale, this person that she has decades of history with, or her husband, the father of her children, or even her daughter. I think that would be super dark. I feel like if it was her daughter versus anyone, Sidney would always pick her daughter, but Gale versus Mark would be an interesting scenario. Who will Sidney pick? Also, what if Sidney kind of struggles with motherhood? What if things about her own mother kind of creep into her mind and her life? Something about Maureen Prescott, Sidney didn't really know who she was. She even says this in Scream 3 to Mark Kincaid. She says, I didn't even really know my mother. She had this whole secret life. She was this Hollywood actress. She had affairs in her marriage. She cheated on Neil Prescott, Sidney's father. And after the murder of her mother, and then the whole thing goes down with Billy and Stu, after the events of Scream 1, Sidney kind of struggles with this idea of her mother and who she was. And what if that kind of works its way into Sidney's life? She even says, I think she says it to Billy in the first movie, what if I end up just like her? And I feel like in real life, that is a lot of people's fears, to end up like their parents. And considering Scream 7 is going to be around the 30-year anniversary of her mother's death, what if that starts to really affect her? That could be a pretty dark storyline. Sidney has this fear of ending up like Maureen, and what if she kind of does in a way? Maybe, maybe Mark Kincaid is constantly working, he's never home. Maybe they don't have that great of a marriage, and maybe Sidney kind of struggles with some decisions that her mother made. What if Sidney finds herself wanting to cheat in this relationship and be just like her mother? I've brought this up before on some live streams, and sometimes people say like, no, Sidney wouldn't do that, but she's only human after all. So wouldn't it really be interesting if she struggles with some things that everyday people struggle with? What if Sidney has this fear that she's not being a good mom because her mother wasn't really a great mother? Something else I've said in a past video also, sometimes the Scream movies have this like secondary antagonist, this person, this character other than Ghostface who kind of is causing some issues in the storyline, maybe being combative with Sidney. In the first movie, it was Gale. Sidney and Gale kind of butted heads. Scream 2, it was Cotton. Scream 3, I guess that could be considered maybe John Milton, or I don't know, Jennifer Jolie and Gale were kind of combative at times. So what if Maureen and kind of the ghost of Maureen, or this idea of Maureen, ends up being that secondary antagonist in Scream 7? In Scream 3, we get this sort of hallucination or this dream or vision of Sidney where she sees Maureen. And that's actually one of the scariest scenes in the franchise. I feel like we could use some of that in Scream 7, but this, vision of Maureen in Scream 3 even says to Sidney, "You're just like me." So what if we get that in Scream 7 again? Not only do I think seeing sort of like a ghost of Maureen could really truly be scary, but also just kind of a dark plot point for Sidney to be haunted by this idea of her mother and who she really was, and have it creep into Sidney's life, her marriage and her family, her being a mother herself now. And then finally, another way to just make Scream 7 a darker, scarier movie, we need some genuinely scary scenes, some creepy moments, like the call is coming from inside the house type of scene. Ghostface is in the house, but you just don't know exactly where. Creeping around the corners, and Ghostface kind of comes out from the shadows, creeps their way out of the shadows. I think Alex, who inspired this video, actually said like, what if someone wakes up in the middle of the night and Ghostface is just kind of standing there at the edge of the bed? That would definitely be creepy. Something like that where it's genuinely scary. I mean, I'll even take some jump scares. I feel like the Scream franchise doesn't really ever do jump scares, so just something to make it a little scarier. One scene that I did really enjoy in Scream 6 was on the train with Mindy. I feel like it was very suspenseful and scary because it's in public. Like, you're surrounded by all of these people, so you think you're safe, but then the lights keep flickering, Ghostface gets closer and closer, and Ghostface manages to stab Mindy in front of all these people, but no one knows what's going on. That was actually sort of a scary scene, so definitely something like that for 7 would work as well. Maybe in a public setting, but like no one's really there to help you still, even though you're surrounded by people. I think that would be good. But yeah, there's been some rumors that Scream 7 is going to be the darkest movie yet. We don't really have any more information than that. But there's also been rumors about this cult going after Sidney. Like I mentioned, I think Stu's coming back with the cult, so we'll see how everything plays out. I mean, maybe they are gonna kidnap one of her kids. I just hope it's a grittier movie and not so much on the comical side. We could have a few moments of comic relief, but let's be dark, scary, dramatic, and let's get mystery back into the story. But that's it for today. Those are just some ways that I think Scream 7 could possibly be a scarier movie, more on the dark side. Leave a comment down below and let me know some of your thoughts. Please give this video a like if you enjoyed it, subscribe to the channel if you're new here, and make sure you turn on all notifications so that you don't miss out on future videos like this one. Please also go follow me over on all other social media and subscribe to my second YouTube channel. The link is down below in the description. Thanks so much for tuning into another video, and I will see you guys next time.